hey, everybody. Welcome back to Women in Sales Leadership. I am your host, Amy Evans, and today's conversation is one that I have honestly been wanting to have for such a long time, because on this show, we talk about promotions, we talk about big career changes, we talk about growing and building your own business. And along with that comes, if you're doing it right, more money, more earnings. And we talk all about that, but what we haven't yet spoken about and what we don't usually talk about are what happens to that money once it lands into your account. And the truth is that so many high-performing women that I work with and that are crushing it personally and professionally, some of them are quietly struggling with their relationship with their own money. And that is why I'm so excited for today. Our guest today is Carolin Helff. Carolin is a money advisor and coach who works specifically with high-earning women, and she helps them go from financial success on paper to genuinely financially empowered and healthy in real life. Carolin, I am so delighted that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amy. It is such an honor to be here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So before we get into this money conversation, I want to start with you, Carolin, because your story is one that I think so many women listening to this conversation are going to relate to in a very real level. You did something really courageous in your career, mid-career, right? You took a sabbatical. And for some of you who are listening right now, even that word sabbatical itself feels like this far off dream that might never come true. So let's go back there, Carolin, for you. What was happening in your life that led up to your sabbatical?
Yeah, no, totally happy to share that. Exactly as you said, right? The sabbatical is like, wait, is this even real? Sometimes I now call it a power break, a recharge, whatever you want to call it. But in 2018, I walked away from a, high paying in the 200Ks job at the time in San Francisco. I was in Silicon Valley for a while, and I had set aside money for probably at least 1.5 years. I had started setting the intention of giving myself a fund, an account that was set to me being able to walk away from that job at the time, because I really wanted to travel the world, take a break, and try to reassess some things in my life. And so I ultimately did it. I took almost 9 months off and landed my dream job right after at Stripe, where a lot of people had told me, there's no way, like, you're killing your career momentum. You're just climbing the ladder. None of the big guys are going to take you seriously afterwards. They did.
Wow.
And it worked, and I was recharged.
Okay. So I can only imagine what this would have been like in the lead up to this decision to take a sabbatical. Walk me through that. Yeah.
So I'll give you a little bit of the background. I was born and raised in Germany. And so I think generally we have a bit more of a, frugal, pragmatic approach to money and making money and what it does for you. I think compared to America, where I've been the last, 15 years and really built my higher end career, I would say, there is a bit more of that feeling and emotional setup of, I am making money and I am working this hard in order to use this at some point in my life. And we are taking breaks, obviously an entire different PTO culture. But long story short, what had happened is that I started having some death around me from really, really close friends in their early 30s that became a real wake-up call. This entire story of, we're just going to work until close to retirement and then we're going to have time to live because we're free. We have time freedom, then we have money freedom, and we'll just wait. And until then, it's very straight up one linear line, just climbing the ladder. And so one of my closest friends died at the age of 34 of cancer. And we thought we had all our lives, to go on the trip to Italy that we had been dreaming about in university, to do these things with our partners and see the world and build businesses on the side. And she passed away pretty, very, very quickly. And it was this wake up call of, what if I don't have forever to make some of these dreams come true, these big things that I'm waiting for. And so wake up call was I need to make sure that throughout my life, not only do I set myself up for the long-term future, but I also do live a really, really beautiful life in the interim, and we don't just wait because we don't know how much really time we have on this planet and on this earth, right? And so I was like, I'm going to start setting money aside because that is what I knew I needed to do. So that's just a very practical component of a sabbatical. You need to have enough funds to do this, figure out what you still have to pay for at home, and can you make this a dream come true? And then there's the entire emotional part of it, the like limiting beliefs, what society tells you about this kind of undertaking. And that was a whole lot more that I definitely needed to tap into.
Oh my goodness. So many things in there that you touched on. I want to dive in a little bit here. So I'm imagining a world where first off, you have the financial wherewithal, like you've planned to take the sabbatical, you've planned to take the time away. And what were some of the things that people told you might happen career-wise though, from taking this kind of break?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody will relate to this, but especially the ambitious women, right? The ones that want to climb the ladder, the ones that are in sales, that go after the high quotas. Like this is a very particular type of woman that goes after goals, is already pushed through so many obstacles in her life and overcome that. And then it's like, well, what do you do all of this for to then take a break like this? You can't afford to have a gap like this in your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, corporate America does not want to see somebody like living their best life and taking like a year off. It's like the concern was you've gone the ambitious route and there's a very particular path that you better stay on. You sidestepping this or going something else, you are taking yourself out of she's ambitious, she wants to go after the title, she's going to be good for the company. And a lot of people said that. My boss, when I handed in my resignation at the time, was like, wow, you must really, truly believe in yourself to do something like this. And I was like, that is your piece of advice? Really? Unbelievable. You also get a lot of that, oh, good for you. Must be nice to be able to do that. That weird, like, underlying, like envy, jealousy, that obviously will make you question things like, do I deserve this? Can I do this? What if I do this? And I come back and I start applying and I talk to the recruiters and, I talk to the headhunters and they're all like, sorry, you've just proven that you're not part of the ambitious women's club anymore.
Oh, yeah. But that's not what actually happened for you, was it?
It didn't, but I still get chills thinking about it because it's not like I knew that was not going to happen, right? I just had some bigger trust at the end of the day, and a level of self-confidence where I said, I am highly educated. I've proven myself so much already that I also prove that I can do this shows more character and personality than me just going the very typical path without ever doing anything else. And so it did not happen. And I did land my dream job at the time at Stripe afterwards, a very up and coming, very massive company at the time.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. What's one thing that you wish someone had told you before you took that leap to go on that first sabbatical?
Believe in yourself, plan well, cut out the noise of the people that don't want to see you do this.
I got it. What was the biggest thing that surprised you when you came back from that break?
I'll give you the insight that I had on how long it took me to get into the break. Because you're
okay,
like,
so
you hand in
let's
your
start
resignation. You hand in your resignation. You give your notice. You figure out with the company how long they need you for transition. I gave them a little longer because I was like, obviously I want you guys to plan. And then I booked a one-way ticket to Puerto Rico at the time. I planned to travel solo almost the entire time. And so the first part of just booking a one-way ticket where you're like, if somebody asks, so what are you planning to do there? How long are you there? When are you coming back? And you don't have an answer to this. That's the entire point of some of this adventure. And so I think one of the big surprises is, I did all this and then I got there and the amount of time it took to realize and let my nervous system catch up on, I'm on a break. I am not about to go on Monday, check my quota, check the leaderboard, double check my key account notes. I'm like, wait, this is all just me? And so like getting out of that, what we are, if you're in corporate America, if you're in like one of those like high hustling jobs, your system is very used to this, and that all of a sudden being taken away, even so you have prepared for this and you knew this is coming. I think it took a good 6 weeks to just not wake up and being like, do I have an email in my inbox from a client where something blew up? Is the boss not happy? Did somebody on the other end, the legal team, just, sandbag a deal? And I was just like, okay, the calming down took a good amount of time.
6 weeks. Yeah. That's interesting because, Carolyn, that resonates with me. I think that tracks. I didn't take a sabbatical. Well, I kind of did. It depends on what your definition, how broad you want to take the definition. I was laid off. I got laid off.
Yes.
And I had a severance package. And so I was so grateful. I was so lucky, fortunate that I had that. It was definitely 6 weeks. It might have been 8 before my nervous system just calmed down so that I could actually be present.
Yeah.
And it was almost like tell me if it felt like this to you. It felt to me like coming down from this like elevated, very strenuous anxiety almost, though you would have, if somebody asked me at the time, I would have said, I don't have anxiety. After I went through that decompression period, I recognized how much anxiety I'd had and how stressed out I constantly was and how I wasn't in a good space mentally. I wasn't in a good space physically. I didn't have the kind of connection I wanted to have in my relationships that were important to me. These are the things I noticed. Did you see things like this for yourself too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also make a really, really good point, right? Like my particular sabbatical was a voluntary, planned, making a dream come true. But ultimately, it is very, very comparable to an involuntary one that could be happening with layoffs. We see a lot of that today, where this kind of thing will take you by surprise. And so from one day to another, you are now without this job that arguably, I think you and I for sure can say this, pretty much dictated our entire lives.
Yes.
It was the 14 hours on, if Saturday something happened, if the, like board members needed something on a Sunday, like that, it became normal to operate under this amount of availability, can be reached at all times because that is what's normal in that level. And also the constant on and just at the back of your mind, being on and being anxious and stressed probably. And so totally felt that. I always see it a lot with clients now, the ones that are preparing for this, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you without you having it completely planned out 100%, even more stressful.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I know what that's like. I do. I want to shift gears a little bit because what you've talked about is not the situation where you're it's sort of shockingly forced upon you, but more the opportunity to give yourself a chance to dream. First off, a chance to dream and create this possibility that you could have this extended break in your life from your career, and how you plan for it on the money side. And what I see happen, and I work with so many high performing leaders, sales leaders that are both men and women, but I will find a lot is that my women clients and friends will say things like, I'm just not good with money. And in my own mind, my attitude was always, I don't really have to pay attention to how much money I'm spending because I can always make more money, right? Instead of actually dealing with my money situation. And what blows my mind is these individuals, these women are not, they're so smart. They're so accomplished. They're so sophisticated. They're high performing. They can sell circles around people. They can run multi-million-dollar organizations, and they know their business cold. They know their business cold. They can walk into a forecast, they know everything. But when it comes to their own personal finances, we're carrying around this story of I'm not good with money, or I don't have to pay attention to it because I can always make more money. In the work that you do as a money coach, as an advisor, where do you find this belief comes from?
This is such a on point question. I always say, right? Like most of my clients, they know how exactly as you say, close multi-million-dollar deals. They make the companies they work for millions of dollars every year. They can like do this back end. Some of them run their own, companies. But if you think about everything that we've been taught, and also what to this day in 2026 is still in society, is this: women are not. It's not about a woman is supposed to be wealthy. A woman is supposed to be responsible with money. You're supposed to be responsible. You can like money, but you better don't be really going after the money. A woman saying, I love money because of the opportunity and the options it gives me, that is like, are you some kind of gold digger? Are you greedy? Like, why do you want this money? For a man, it is perfectly normal to want more money, to invest, to want to multiply their money, to talk about it at length at every function in society. The amount of I can probably to this day, now that I'm in this field, it comes up more often, but the amount of times it just comes up as a normal dinner conversation amongst girlfriends, between women, in a women's networking group, it's still this hush-hush topic of just climb the ladder, you can make good money there. Like, you've been taught how to make money, but you've not ever been taught or expected to manage your money in a way that it really fulfills your dreams. And so there's a lot of that going on, not even to mention, obviously none of us got taught personal finances in school. I have an MBA with a major in finance and strategy. And I walked out of this, back in the day when I got this, not knowing anything about personal finances. I knew capital markets, I knew equities, I knew how companies raised money, commercial deals. None of it was about personal finances and how do you set yourself up well as a woman, as a family, without just, I'll always work harder and I'll always make more.
Hey, quick break for a second. If you are a sales leader who is ready for your next step up, and I'm talking about leading other sales leaders, becoming a director, a VP, even a CRO, then this is for you. I'm hosting a free workshop. You can grab your spot at amyevanscoaching.com. This is for sales leaders who are in tech and are wanting to land jobs where you can earn anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year. And again, you can grab your spot at amyevanscoaching.com. Okay, back to the show. Okay. So I'm curious about this. I want to dig in. Maybe you can paint a picture of a typical client that you work with, and what you often see is that client's relationship with money, like especially when that client first comes to work with you. What do you often see there?
Great question. So one of the first things that we do, and I think that's been pretty much the topic across the board. A lot of them already have financial advisors, by the way. They'll be like, I make good money. We have a very healthy household income. A lot of times my clients, the women, are the breadwinner in the family. Yeah. They make substantially more than their partners or husbands. Them, right? Like, not making that money would put the family in a very different situation. So a lot of extra stress, because that's now also on their shoulders, that they're the big ones making this. They are already, a lot of time is already spent on managing their careers, managing all the things that come with having a family, and managing the household, making sure everybody is, happy and healthy there. And so a lot of times they're like, I just don't have time to look at this. Yeah. I'm thinking as long as I make more money, their focus is on how do I get the next promotion? How do I keep climbing the ladder? Because that's where more money is, rather than looking at how do I keep more of the money that I'm making. And so a lot of times also we go into one of the first questions is what did you grow up to believe about money? And a lot of them come from families where they are, the first ones that has ever made the kind of money they make now. Most of my clients don't come from wealthy families. They're like, we had enough. There was, average money, but there was a scarcity in the family. There was, let's hold on to our money. We're not sure. Or their parents also not having been taught good money skills. And so them having seen how money would go away. Some of the families might have been in like the dot-com bubble in the 2000s, that kind of stuff. So upbringing, money wasn't around. They didn't learn the skill set. And now their focus is, how do I make more money? Never the question on how do I keep more money? And so they come to me usually and they're like, I'm just done with this. It can't be that that we have available almost $500,000 of like a household income or more. And I still don't feel secure.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere closer to knowing if I can realize some of my dreams. For some people, that is the power break. For some of them, because they've built on their career, they are getting pregnant and starting their families at the end of their 30s. And they're like, I'm going to get 3 months maternity break. I haven't worked this hard to only do 3 months. I want to do 6. But can I afford this?
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of stuff. Feeling insecure, even though the money on paper, society tells you shouldn't feel insecure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Carolyn, you just described my growing up, sincerely, and me. I remember earning, I was making, I made amazing money in corporate. And I mean, nobody in my family had ever made money like that before. $500,000 with a total $1 million comp package, and I felt so poor. I felt so poor. I still was stressed about feeling like I didn't have enough. It wasn't going to be enough. And that all goes back to this growing up in this family where my father was an entrepreneur. Our income was highly variable. Sometimes we had a lot of money, sometimes we didn't. And all of that stuff. So you just described me fully.
And I had that exact same thing, right? So dive into that emotion because it comes up with almost everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like this attitude of like, money's going to be erratic. And so I have to be, I have to behave like there's just never enough. That was really maybe the story that I came up with there. I'm improvising that, but, that could be some of it for what I see. I bet there's others that are listening to this right now where maybe they have something similar in their youth and how they were raised about money. And your commentary about going to school to get an MBA. I have an MBA as well. I can run a spreadsheet.
You're like, how did we not learn?
I can run a
how
financial
to live life.
I mean, I can do all this stuff. None of these things were, and it's so powerful. You brought up something I want to go deeper on because so many, you were making enough money. You, our listener, you are likely making enough money that you already have some kind of a wealth advisor in your life. You alluded to this, Carolyn. So most of us are working with a financial advisor and maybe even someone that you really like. I really like mine. And I think about that. I think, okay, or maybe y'all are thinking that, okay, that's enough. My money's taken care of. Carolyn, talk about the difference between what a wealth advisor does and having someone that's really coaching you and helping you manage and advocate for your own money. And my gut tells me that there's two different things here, but I need you to clarify.
Absolutely. I am happy to. So at least half of my clients, I would say, already have financial advisors. And what if I were to describe a financial advisor and what they are trying to do at the base level is you are essentially outsourcing the thinking and understanding of money and money markets and all of that to another individual. It's a long-term relationship. They a lot of times will have a threshold to take you on, and you are hiring them to manage your assets to become more over a very, very long period of time.
Right.
Financial advisors can be great, but what happens most of the time is that you have not done the thinking. You have never discussed your values with money. The only part that the financial advisor essentially is here to do is make more of your money in the long run. A lot of them mostly handle also retirements and like funds
Right.
far out. What we leave on the table entirely in that is understanding what your money does. So it's a black box you're handing over. It is that anxiety that we talked about, that stress that comes with money, even though you have made way more than you ever thought you would. And so that goalpost of, I'm not sure if you relate to this, Amy, but I always had this where I was like, in my, early on in my career, once I hit the 6-figure threshold of an income, that's where all my money, stories will go away. So started making 100K. Nothing changed. I
So
afforded a little more
true.
life. I afforded a little
Yes.
nicer life, but nothing actually felt different. Then you make the 200, then you make the 250. And so you're just like, at some point, this is going to change. And it just doesn't. The
Mm-mm.
goalpost keeps moving. Of course, there might be some base securities that are now in place, right? The people that I work with don't wonder how to pay rent. That really is not our problem, right? It's not, there is enough money to go around, but that insecurity and not being able to answer, can I actually live the life that I truly dream of, and barely can say it out loud. And so coming back to what a money coach does, it's a lot around the education. There is little bits and bobs that I want people to understand from an educational standpoint so they can connect the dots, because a lot of that anxiety comes around from not understanding. And these ambitious women, like all of us, right? I remember this. I want to know. I am an expert in so many fields. We both have an MBA.
Yes.
At that point, you also get to a level where you're like, I am so highly educated, I'm not allowed to ask a dumb question. And then you have nowhere to go. So you don't have confidence around your decisions. So you consider outsourcing it. You still have that underlying anxiety because we've never addressed childhood and upbringing. And the big part I always say is, what's the intentionality with your money, right? Yes, we can talk about retirement and what happens 30 years out and that kind of stuff. But what about, you've been close to burnout? This happened to me before my second sabbatical. I was very, very close to burnout. And I was like, if I still want to be in this corporate career, keep climbing at this rate, I'm not going to be able to function at this level anymore. I need a break. And I want to reset and see what else is coming after this. And so it's a lot around the tools and the confidence and the knowledge of what you want to do with your life and your money. Financial advisors don't get in that stuff. They're not going to be like, would you like to take a sabbatical? Their answer is going to be, we're not taking sabbaticals. That takes $80,000 off your retirement account that you could have used otherwise.
Yeah, right.
And so it's very particular. So most of the time, a lot of my women already work with financial advisors, still a lot of questions. I always say, unless anybody has essentially $1 million in liquid assets already, you don't need a financial advisor.
Interesting. Okay. I get it. Liquid assets. So is that, you're distinguishing the $1 million from $1 million in your 401k to $1 million that's truly liquid and not locked up in a retirement account? Yeah.
Part of it,
Okay.
yes. So a lot of times, right, a lot of women will have done a lot of good work around 401ks, and that means you're already invested. Most funds, like 401k funds that you can get from an employer, this is, where they start, they are auto-invested in a portfolio by the companies that are behind these 401k funds. So the big ones like Fidelity and Vanguard and everything, where financial advisors are working on those without you ever being part of this. If you were to hand over your 401k to a financial advisor, they are going to take that portfolio, look at it and be like, but we want to charge you fees because we're managing these assets for you. And so they will want all of the 401k money coming over and a lot more other liquid assets in order to invest them.
Right. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So I think I'm starting to understand a little bit here. So let's talk about money behavior. Are there some money behaviors that high performers specifically fall into, high performing women, that ends up working against them financially?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest one that comes up is probably a level of lifestyle creep and comparison. Performing at this level, right? You're in boardrooms, you're at customer meetings, you are having a very outward profile, persona. We are talking about stylings, how you show up, the jewelry you wear, the hair that's done, your face, your clothing, all of these things, the amount of travel, the amount of, recovering from all this travel and like personal care, the level of stress and anxiety that comes with this. A lot of women, luckily, work probably with a therapist, with somebody advising them in like life, with a coach, right? So this like performing at this level doesn't come at no cost. And so the higher you climb, your expenses to upkeep your body, your mind, your well-being become so much more expensive. And then also you are under constant review, essentially, so that keeping up with the Joneses and the level of comparison. Oh, I should be owning. Like I was in San Francisco for 6 years and then in New York. The level of, oh, this other person just bought a $5 million home. I guess we should be buying a $5 million home. Oh, they have, 4 Rivians and like 3 Teslas. Like the amount of upkeep, children, private schools, like life just gets inflated and inflated and inflated. And so while, you're making more, you're also spending so much more, and it becomes normal to play in this. And that is a very, very dangerous undertaking, because at the end of the day, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep and put towards that money growing and being used for your goals rather than just daily life and upkeep.
Okay. I think I'm starting to follow you here. Okay. So the upkeep creep
Yeah.
sounds like a real challenge. I can like already see that how that occurred for me earlier in my life. What does it look like when someone is on the other side of working with you? When a woman does this work, what do you notice that really shift for your clients beyond just their financial health? What are some of the biggest things you see?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest feedback components, and I always ask afterwards, right? We do a good amount of like really getting into the work and how people feel from where we start to where we go. One thing that always comes up is I feel so much lighter. I don't have all these questions. Like these women are already, right? Like highest, like performing, they're climbing, they're doing all the things. The amount of noise that we all have in the back of our minds because we constantly essentially have these like levels of questions running through our head. Am I far enough? Can I afford this? Will I ever be able to step outside of this? What if tomorrow I don't want to perform at this level anymore? And so it's these constant nagging questions that take a lot of effort and like let our system run on a constant high, even when we're resting. And so we find answers to those questions in order to not have to ask yourself these questions every day. And those are not even conscious questions on can I afford this, right? It's that underlying anxiety of what if a layoff happened? Am I and my family, are we okay? How long are we going to be okay? Can I take a breather if that was to happen? If any other, like emergency happened, would you be okay? And so it's how do we quiet down the noise in order to free up that capacity from your nervous system, from your body, and from your accounts? And the other part is I'm always like, what is your dream? Some people dream about a sabbatical like I did. Some other people are like, girl, good for you. I have no desire to go travel the world. I want to have a most epic staycation in my new home, finally have time for my family and for, like my loved ones, and just finally enjoy all these beautiful things I have around me that I don't ever have time for. And so we get the answer to what does it take to do this? And then they do it.
Okay. So I heard you just describe freedom, peace, confidence. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yep.
That is so powerful. So for the women that are listening today, Carolin, for those who are listening, I want to bring us to a close, a conclusion, because I know we could talk for a while, but we do have to wrap up. I want to give them something actionable. You all who are listening, you are doers. You don't sit around just listening to pie in the sky inspiration, like waiting to move. Carolin, if you could give the listener today one insight, one shift to thinking, or one small action that she can take this week that would be meaningful to help her change her relationship with her own money, what would that be?
Great question. So I would invite everybody to take half an hour, get their favorite beverage, sit down with a piece of paper, and really think about a really near-term dream. Something where you're like, this in the next 1 to 3 years of my life is what I want to make happen. This would be epic. Like really just write down, one of those like near-term dreams. And then I invite everybody to think through, is your money, your finances are currently set up in a way to make that dream come true? I'll give you my example that I started a while back. I've always dreamt of going to this very exclusive, amazing, super expansive safari and do a Africa trip for about 5 weeks. And I was like, okay, let me really dream through this. I have a vision board that's like all the pictures of like the big 5 animals and like these, gorgeous places in the middle of nowhere that you're just like, this is a once in a lifetime experience. And then I said, this is probably going to cost me about $15,000. The way I currently live my life, how do I get to having a pot for a $15,000 South Africa trip? And so looking into, this is going to happen in 1 to 3 years, whenever. But am I setting money aside? Am I giving money direction to go towards this dream? And so at the time, I had my goal of South Africa, $15,000. And I was like, I want to make this happen pretty quickly. So I'm going to set aside $1,000 a month towards that goal, because then you know exactly how long it's going to take you, when you can make it happen, and that money isn't accidentally gonna go towards something else, because that's what happens with most of the ladies, right? The lifestyle creep, the money doesn't have a direction, and so that big pot, just something goes in, something goes out, and you're like, kind of don't know if I can make that dream a reality. And so sit down, write down your dream, come up with an amount you need to make that dream reality, and then set yourself the goal of, okay, how much per month, per paycheck am I setting aside for that dream? Put it in a separate account.
Oof. Okay. I wonder how many of you are going to take that on to...
I want to hear about those dreams.
Yeah. Put it in the comments. I would invite you, make a comment if you're going to take on this dream, and maybe even what that dream might be if you want to share it, right?
Yes.
One thing I do know about dreams are, you got to give yourself permission to have them and get them down and to plan for them. And then the next thing is to start sharing about it. Right? To share what that dream is, so it can begin to be out in the universe. And now you have a little bit of accountability and support.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it. We get into manifestation. We can get a little woo-woo, which the numbers tend to not be.
That's okay.
I mean, allow yourself to dream.
That's okay. I think you starting with dreams is where anything happens with goals and how we find ourselves making things happen that we never thought were possible. I would suggest that you listening right now, likely if you reflect on your life, that there are so many things in your life that you've already done that you never thought were possible. And that one thing that could additionally go on this list is whatever dream you come up with in this exercise today. Carolin, that's brilliant. Thank you. I am so grateful that you joined in this conversation today. I know that you made an impact for somebody listening today. You made an impact for me. How would someone listening today, if they want to work with you, check you out, how do you recommend that they find you?
Absolutely. No, it's been an absolute honor to be here, Amy. So I'm all about, inspirations and dreaming and making money, as a tool for all of those things. So where they can find me biggest is definitely LinkedIn at this point. So it's Carolin Helff. They'll find me. We are connected in there. The coaching business is called The Financially Fierce, because that's, a big, big part of what we're trying to do. Ladies feeling fierce about their money and really going after it. what we want to do. I do have an Instagram as well. You'll find my website there, and lots of different offers, right? I work a lot one-on-one with women, but also I do a lot of master classes and workshops for just everybody to get a feel for this kind of work. Because this is not, hopefully this comes through, but I'm, quite bubbly. I'm very excited. Money doesn't have to be this dry, pardon me, but middle-aged white man in a navy suit that's but you are not doing well enough. I'm the anti-finance bro money coach. I'm this should be fun. This is motivating. This is where at the end of the day, after a hard quarter or even just a hard day and week, you're I get it, what I'm doing this for. And I'm actually getting closer to my dreams by hustling this hard.
Oh, getting closer to your dreams by hustling this hard. I think that's exactly where we want to leave things. Carolin, again, such a pleasure. And if any of you listening today want to check out Carolin, I will make sure that her link to her LinkedIn, her website, her Instagram are all in the show notes. So come back, check out this episode, and you can find Carolin's stuff. And if this year, 2026, the year of the horse, this is our Lunar New Year today, we're recording today, so this will go live after that. But if this year is also about a career change for you and you stepping up to the next level of your career, reach out to me at amyevans.com, and you will find me and all the opportunities that I can help support you in advancing your career. Thank you so much for listening today, and go be the leader that you know you are. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining today. I know you're a super generous person, and a gift that you could give to someone you know, a friend, a colleague that you think would enjoy today's episode would be to send them a text, share a link to this episode with them. I do produce this show myself, and every time you share it, it helps the podcast grow and it supports the work that I do here. Also, if you happen to be a sales leader who is ready to take your next step up into a leader of leaders role, whether it's via promotion or you're ready to go and get that new job at a new company, I'm talking about director roles, VP roles, even CRO roles in B2B tech, where you can earn $500,000 to $1 million or more. The workshop I'm giving is an hour-long workshop. It's totally free. You'll learn the process that I teach my clients on how to effectively position themselves, effectively network, and own their executive presence so they can land the job and get hired and promoted into these big sales leadership roles in B2B tech. If this sounds like you, come grab your spot. It's waiting for you at my website, amyevanscoaching.com, where you can unlock what's next for you.